We'll take a look at ClockListener, and I know I mentioned this already. The timer is important to this. We didn't quite look at the ClockListener class. You don't have to change anything with the ClockListener class. It's just setting up to work with the graphics panel and to call the graphics panel clock method. So don't change anything here. We don't need to make any changes. What we really need to do is work with our timer, which we, again, don't have to make changes unless we want to edit the timing of it. But this clock method is going to do whatever we put in this method on that time interval. So every 25 milliseconds, it's going to do this automatically and then repaint. So this example is just going to take a look at working with, say, the red rectangle, which is called S. So if you remember, I created a variable called step, and I just started it at 8. So if I do s.x plus equals step, now clock will automatically call this based on that time value and repaint every 25 milliseconds. So we should see S, the red rectangle, kind of run and go off the edge, right? So that's not necessarily the behavior we want, but the clock listener is listening and working and doing what I've asked it to do within the clock method. So one thing you may want to do is some type of horizontal moving back and forth. So I built a quick example of that. And when you do this, you have to be careful. So I'm starting at 100. And the reason I'm starting at 100 and setting the step to 8 is that that's where I created the rectangle. So it's starting at 100. So this is going to force it to start positive and move to the right. Now, if it gets greater than 300, it's going to switch that step value to -8 and move in the opposite direction until it hits that 100 value again. So there are some things here where you could miss the 100. So you want to be careful that mathematically it will be equal to. You also want to be careful of sometimes if you got to say less than could work, but sometimes when you're using greater than, less than, I can kind of demo it where, if I did greater than or equal to 100, then this would kind of be negated because 300 would be greater than equal to 100 and would never reach this. So just pay close attention to kind of how you're starting and getting the turnaround to happen and where you want that to happen. So to move horizontally back and forth, this could be an obstacle, right? So right now I'm moving between 100 and 300. Now I could alternately move vertically. So in that case, I would kind of do the same idea, only now I'm working with the Y values. Again, I know I'm starting at 100 and then it's bouncing back to that position. And I can try this as well. If we go less than, that should also work. And now, if I wanted to, I could move diagonally if I include both of these, right? So if I do this, and since they're kind of going to the same place, I could set up some diagonal movement. So just some ways that you could have some movement, and you could certainly change where those bounds are. So if I wanted to go this to go a little further, I could change that to 400. I should see it go a little closer to the edge. Okay. So hopefully all of these things have been useful. I know it's maybe a little longer than I intended, but ultimately you should be able to come back and revisit any of the stuff in the video by watching it again or hitting rewind. Be careful of things like this.repaint being missing. So if you don't have that, it's not going to show your changes. So you might have your code right and be making the changes. Again, be careful of that moving off the screen. Think about how you might want to use collision and One other thing I guess we could demo is if we slow down the movement of our timer, we should see our our square moving quite slowly. So keep that in mind, that you can change that parameter. Do not change this one. You want to leave that one alone. So you've got some options here, a lot of things that you can build upon. You can add as many rectangles as you like. You can add your own specific drawings and additional variables that can be changed within the key listening or clock listening methods. And use all of those things to build your game. All right.